St. Augustine's Hospital, a behemoth of a building, looming, decaying, a graveyard of memories. It stood at the edge of town, shrouded in eerie silence, a stark contrast to its bustling past. Vines like skeletal fingers clawed their way up the crumbling walls. Windows, once portals to healing, were now vacant eyes, reflecting only the despair of neglect. The air hung heavy, thick with the stench of decay and ghostly whispers. Years had passed since its closure, filled with hushed whispers and fearful glances. Locals told tales of strange lights and disembodied screams. Children dared not venture near, warned of spirits that roamed its corridors. The hospital, once a beacon of hope, had become a haunted relic. The iron gates, rusted and groaning, stood ajar, inviting the curious and the foolish to venture within. The setting sun cast long, eerie shadows as 5 figures approached the derelict hospital. They were young, their curiosity outweighing their fear. Emily, the self-proclaimed leader, hid her own apprehension. Lily, the pragmatist, balanced Emily's impulsiveness. Jack, the quiet observer, missed nothing. Ethan, the sensitive one, felt everything deeply. Sarah, the youngest, her innocence both endearing and dangerous. They met at the park, drawn together by a shared thirst for adventure. St. Augustine S, with its chilling reputation, became their target. Armed with flashlights and bravado, they made a pact to unravel the mysteries of the abandoned hospital.
You guys sure about this? It looks creepy.
Don't be such a scaredy cat, Sarah. There's no such thing as ghosts. But even as she spoke, a shiver ran down her spine. The air around the hospital felt different, colder, heavier. They had come too far to turn back now.
The heavy oak doors creaked open, protesting their intrusion. The air inside was stale and cold, thick with the smell of dust and decay. Cobwebs hung from every corner, shimmering in the beams of their flashlights. The silence was oppressive, broken only by their breathing and frantic hearts. They moved cautiously down a long, dimly lit corridor, their footsteps echoing eerily. The walls, once cheerful, were now stained and peeling. Medical posters hung askew, their messages ironic amidst the decay. The air grew colder as they descended deeper, the feeling of being watched intensified.
Did you hear that? A faint rustling sound seemed to emanate from the shadows.
It's probably just rats. But she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched.
They reached a room at the end of the corridor. The door hung open, its paint scratched and chipped. A single word was scrawled across its surface in what looked like dried blood. Help! The sight sent a shiver down their spines. This was no ordinary abandoned building. Hesitantly, they stepped inside. The room was small and bare, furnished only with a rusty bed frame and a dilapidated bedside table. Dust covered every surface, and the air was thick with decay.
This was probably a patient's room. Imagine being trapped in here, sick and alone.
A cold breeze swept through the room, stirring the dust and sending a chill down their spines. The children froze, their blood turning to ice. The voice filled with despair and longing seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It spoke of pain, of unfinished business, of a desperate need for release.
Ethan stammered, his bravado crumbling. S1, who's there?
The temperature plummeted and the air grew heavy with the stench of decay. The ghostly plea hung in the air, a tangible manifestation of suffering. The ethereal glow intensified, coalescing into a swirling vortex of light. Faces, pale and drawn, materialized for a fleeting moment, their expressions a mixture of pleading and accusation. They were children, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope, their voices whispering in unison, "Help us, free us." Terror threatened to overwhelm them, yet a strange sense of purpose began to bloom within their young hearts. These were not monsters to be feared, but trapped souls seeking solace. A silent agreement passed between them, a shared determination to help these lost spirits find peace.
What happened to you? Why are you trapped here?
The ethereal figures shifted, their forms flickering like candle flames. One figure, a young girl with long, flowing hair and eyes that shone with an otherworldly light, drifted forward. "We were patients here," she whispered, her voice filled with profound sorrow. The ghostly girl explained their plight. They were tethered to the hospital by unfinished business, by regrets and unfulfilled promises. To be freed, they needed the living to help them find closure.
The children, their initial fear giving way to sympathy and determination, listened intently. The girl, Anya, proposed a ritual.
Each child would need to connect with a specific spirit to hear their story, understand their pain, and help them find peace. Anya guided them to a dusty old storage room, its shelves stacked high with forgotten medical supplies. In the center of the room stood a table, covered in a white sheet, with a single candle flickering on its surface. One by one, the children stepped forward, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Each child was paired with a spirit, their presence made known through a cold breeze, a whispered word, a fleeting touch.
Emily found herself face to face with a young boy who had succumbed to a relentless fever.
Lily connected with a kind-hearted nurse, filled with regret for a life cut short.
Jack encountered a grieving father, desperate to reunite with his family.
Sarah, her empathy heightened by the supernatural encounter, found herself comforting a frightened young girl.
And Ethan, the youngest, formed a bond with Anya, her gentle spirit guiding him through the darkness.
As they listened, they felt a profound sadness but also a glimmer of hope. The ritual was long and emotionally draining. The children were forced to confront their own mortality, to face the fragility of life and the enduring power of grief. They shed tears for the lost souls, their young hearts heavy with sorrow. But through it all, they never wavered in their determination to help.
Finally, as dawn approached, they gathered in the main hall, the spirits swirling around them. Anya, her eyes filled with gratitude, explained the final step. Each child had to make a promise to the spirit they had connected with, a promise that would honor their memory and help them find peace.
Emily promised the young boy that she would live her life to the fullest.
Lily vowed to the nurse that she would always strive to help others.
As the first rays of sunlight pierced through the grimy windows, a sense of peace descended upon the hospital. The air, once heavy with sorrow and despair, felt lighter. The spirits, their forms glowing brightly, gathered around the children, their voices raised in a chorus of gratitude and farewell.
One by one, they began to fade, their ethereal forms dissolving into motes of light. Anya lingered, her hand outstretched towards Ethan, her eyes filled with profound sadness. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have given us the greatest gift, freedom."
Then with a final smile, she too was gone, leaving behind only a faint chill in the air. The sun rose higher, bathing the derelict hospital in its warm glow. The children, their faces etched with exhaustion and newfound wisdom, made their way outside. They left the hospital as they had found it, its walls still crumbling, its corridors still dark. But something had changed. The air no longer felt oppressive, the silence no longer menacing. St. Augustine's was still a place of shadows and memories, but it was no longer a prison. The spirits were free, and the children carried their stories within their hearts. They walked back towards town, their footsteps lighter, their spirits lifted. They didn't speak of what they had experienced, knowing that words could never truly convey the depth of their encounter. The haunting of St. Augustine's Hospital had ended, not in terror and despair, but in courage and redemption.